you can scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com and enter the hashtag and be doing this from a different screen on your desktop. We'll just leave this open for another little so long. We got 17 people in here. Kristin, how many people are in in this session? Do you know?
I can tell you we have 41.
41.
Okay, so we've heard from more than half. That's good. It's kind of fun to see these things.
Few folks with high knowledge, they're going to be able to help us along the way here.
Hey, it's a big tent. Come on. So this is shaping up to be really a good result, because we would expect the people from AWP coming into a Lean Essentials to be mostly in the low category. So 2/3 in the low. And so really psyched to introduce you to Lean and see how we can come together to make it a plus. Ready?
Yes, let's go ahead.
Oh my gosh. So go ahead, Kristin. What's the point of this?
We've got some time to make up.
Okay. We have sprinkled in some timekeepers. It's part of our visual management system. Are we ahead or behind? We must know at all times. We are behind, people.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so again, for those of you who just joined, my name is Zofia Rybkowski. This is a game. Now, Lean is famous for lots and lots of games. This one, we also call them simulations, serious games or simulations. And really, it's an opportunity to create buy-in and to illustrate in a way that a plain old lecture, frankly, can't do. This one, I want to credit Alan Mossman from the UK with sharing this, for sharing this with us. It's available on a Creative Commons license. Could you next slide, please? Okay, so we're going to ask you to participate a little bit here, and let me start the scenario for you. Imagine you're in a situation, you have a customer, and this customer has something that needs to be done. In this particular case, let's say the customer has to go and needs to have their data center or their home set up, and so they call a call center, and that call center takes the call, finds out what the problem is. There may be some modem issue. And then they contact their repair person, and they pack the truck for the repair person for the very next day so that they have all the equipment they need on that truck. And so that is actually then the next day that sets this repair person out on a little trip. As you can see, they kind of wind through the town in various locations based on where they're called. Next slide, please. So the interesting thing is, if you were to look at the slide and we look very closely and we say, all right, what is the goal? What is the goal of this repair person's boss? What is their plan? Well, you probably look at this and you could say, okay, I could see they want them to do 8 calls per day, right? 8 calls per day. But in actual fact, are they making 8 calls per day? And if this were a smaller group, I would give you a chance to respond, but I'm guessing a lot of you are looking at there thinking, no, that's not 8 calls per day. In fact, they're only making about 5.5 calls on average per day. And so you can see it kind of vacillates depending on the day of the week. So what we're going to do is we're going to brainstorm all the possible reasons why this repairs person performance actually varies from day to day. And we're going to send you into little breakout rooms. And in those breakout rooms, we'll have 3 different ones. And we want you to brainstorm. Oh, okay. Are we now doing this using Slido instead of breakout rooms?
Yes.
Moving this to Slido. So what we'd like you to do is go ahead, and you can see the QR code there. You could also go to slido.com and then enter the code down below. And let's see what you think are some of the top reasons why the repair person is not able to make their quota.
How much time do we want to give them to do this, Sophia? Do you think 3 or 4 minutes to see what comes in?
Yeah, let's see what
Okay.
comes in. We can
Okay.
set it at 3 or 4 minutes. I'll even set my little stopwatch here. In the US, we used to have this this game show that, you know, while you're waiting for answers, it went do, 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 do. Is that Jeopardy? I don't remember. But one of them where while people are thinking, this is great. You can already see what some of the biggest results are. Oh.
Hello.
Yes, I hear a little hello here. You just testing out to see if.
I need to mute the speaker.
Oh, okay. All right, well, let's see. We're getting some good ones. Let's just take another minute. So if you haven't had a chance to throw in your answer, please do. If you have a chance to, if you see some in there that makes sense and you want to just double down on it and use the same word, it'll help us along because we can very clearly then see, you know, what are the biggest possible reasons.
Like this word cloud, it's kind of like it's doing a Pareto on its own. Lack of planning and
It
travel
is.
time certainly look to
is.
be 80%.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Okay, so I think we've got some really great responses there. If you want, I think it's certainly more than 10. Obviously, the biggest one, travel time, and then second is lack of planning. We also see traffic. I mean, obviously, some of these are non-mutually exclusive. Some calls and issues take longer. People are not at home. Inefficient information tracking, organized inefficient path, unplanned tasks. One could argue that similar to lack of planning, poor planning, time again, long lunch breaks, missing parts, no GPS, lack of missing parts is we'll talk a little bit about that as well. This inefficient routing, poor instructions, longer calls than expected, confused, not clear information. So I think that we've got enough right there that I think we can talk a little bit about this. And, you know, this is just for efficiency's sake, since we have such a large group, we sort of preloaded some responses from a similar group in the past. Oh, here we go. I put on my little timer, and that was to make sure that we didn't overshoot. I just want you to look at this. So you had some very, very similar things. Distances, services between service points were too far, traffic, customer not at home. There's some misunderstanding on both the call. Now, in terms of frequency, okay, this was the frequency of another group. And of course, it often depends on where that group is located, because obviously there's going to be differences if it's a small town versus a large town and heavily trafficked place versus one where there is not so much. But the purpose of this exercise is to take a moment and to ask ourselves, what's at fault? Okay, so is it the person who's at fault, or is it the system that's at fault? And I'm going to ask my co-hosts here to help me out a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of a role playing. Distances between service points being too far. Kristin, what do you think? Is that the person's fault, or is that the system's fault? I mean,
I'm going to go with system on this one.
The system, yeah, I would agree. Are you okay with that, Nick?
I am.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, obviously, if the person's being dispatched. And how about traffic? Whose fault is that, Nick? What do you think?
Yeah, they got this guy starting right before rush hour. This is craziness. That's definitely the system.
Yeah, I'm going with system on that too.
Great. Okay, how about customer not being at home? Is that the person's fault? Is that the repair person's fault? Or is that the system's fault? Is that something external to that particular person? What do you think, Kristin?
I'm going to go system on that one also.
Okay, that sounds great. And Nick, are you okay with that?
Yeah, and I'd say for the next one, the call centers, misunderstanding the repair needed, that's definitely a system one. They're sending
Yeah.
the repair person out without really understanding what the customer's problem was.
Yeah, I would agree with that. How about the repair person's misunderstanding of the repair needed? Whose fault is that?
You know, I think that there could be a lot of folks looking at person, but I'm going to say I like this here. It's both, because perhaps it's the system, perhaps it's the culture that doesn't allow the repairman to ask questions. Perhaps the system is set up in the way that they're getting. I mean, we don't know how he's getting the information. We don't know what's going on. So I would say it's a little bit of both. I'm going to agree with that answer.
Okay. And you're okay. Okay, great. I think I would tend to agree with that. How about weather? What do you guys
This
think?
is a layup. This is the system.
Yeah,
It's the act of God. It's not the repair person, that's for sure.
It's an act of God. That's right. It's a bigger system than any of us, right? Okay. Sounds great. Okay, wrong address. So if this repair person is given the wrong address, whose fault is that?
This is another layup system.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is an interesting one. Repair person not competent. What do you think?
I'm going to snag that one, and Nick's ahead of us.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. Nick is very competent. He's running through it.
That's interesting. Okay.
I would say a lot of people, again, would maybe think it's the person, right? It's the person's job to make sure that they're competent. But I'm going to agree that it's the system's job to make sure that the person has what they need and knows what they need to be doing their job competently.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Okay. What about the person being lazy? And we saw that some people did write lazy in the cloud as well. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, this one is a tough one because it's not a tough one. It's actually pretty easy. And that is that, of course, some of this could be with the person, but if the system isn't giving this, if the person isn't empowered and they're not training them, then apathy can slip in and it can be confused with laziness. So I think that this is a shared responsibility. I'm
double downing on that with you, Nick. I think it's shared also.
Okay. Yeah, I've had some experience sometimes in our own lives and as well as with other employees that motivating is, really makes a big difference and whether or not the leadership is motivating. So yeah, it's hard to know.
And I think this is a really good one to Kristin's point, because if you do some root cause analysis and think about these things, then getting down to the root cause can get a little bit too close to home sometimes for management and the system. Like,
right.
Wow, we are not providing the right atmosphere. And it really can get to a little bit of a real come to Jesus moment for management.
Right. It can be very downridden culture or a very uplifting culture. And that could be affecting what's going on here. So.
Okay, great. Truck breaking down. What do you think? Nick, I'm going to ask you what's your thought on that. You think it's a little bit of both?
This can go both ways. Of course, the person has responsibility for listening and maybe checking the tires and other things like that they can do. But also the system, do they have a preventive maintenance plan in place? And are they managing these things? So I think this one goes both ways.
Right. Is the system rushing them so much that they skip some of their safety checks back to the safety moment, right?
Oh boy.
So all kinds of those things could be going back to the system.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So, it's interesting. This has been, of course, done multiple times with lots and lots of people. And on average, and again, from Alan Mossman as well, who has been doing this for many years, we find that about 95% of this is really due to the system as well. Some of it is certainly due to the person. But if the vast amount of it is due to the system, the question is, next slide, please, if 95% of the performance is due to the system and 5% is due to the worker, but where do we usually place the blame?
Lazy worker, get rid of the bad workers.
Yeah,
get rid of the incompetent dude.
Get rid of the incompetent dude. That's right. We say the pointy head of the spear, we sometimes say. And in actual fact, we are very often looking at the wrong place. And as managers, does that really solve the problem if we just get rid of someone and we repeat the same problem? So next slide, please. Okay, so the question is, what are we doing in the world of leadership to remove obstacles that prevent people from doing good? So as you are kind of getting, a lot of lean is very much about culture and making sure that we first look externally, and then we figure out how to help people do their best work. So I think you have to hit the next button. And the next one. Progress. Okay, so people work in a system, and the role of the manager is to work on the system, to improve it with the help of the people themselves. And oftentimes the people themselves who can tell us how to help them do a better job if they are given, if we remove fear from the workplace and we allow them to communicate respectfully, but also freely, and we give dedicated times for that to happen. And so there's very much a much more culture of almost servant leadership to a large extent, which is wonderful. Lean is a system change. Next slide, please.
And there was a golden nugget.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Okay.
Okay.
So moving to a little bit of learning about Lean, the Lean Construction Institute uses this graphic, and we describe Lean as a journey to mastery. It starts with being maybe less aware, becoming more aware. Today, we're looking at, the vast majority of the folks who joined have maybe little awareness. We want to help grow that awareness. From awareness, you move to understanding, and from understanding, you go to competency. But you see there's some loops there because you have to understand some, you have to go out and do it. You realize there's more you don't understand, more to learn, and you stay in this loop for a long time. Very few kind of pop out to mastery, and maybe we pop out to mastery on some part of what Lean is about. And then we realize how much we still don't know. It is a continuous learning journey. So most of us stay in that competency and continuing to understand more loop as we move along. Go ahead, Nick. So let's start off with understanding a little bit of Lean from some definition point of view. First of all, Lean is a culture of respect and continuous improvement. It's aimed at creating more value for the customer while the folks in the process are identifying and eliminating waste throughout the processes. So again, we really want to point out, it's a culture, it's a way of thinking, and it's really about this continuous improvement idea and about producing more value for the customer. We'll talk a little bit about what the customer means. There's the big customer for us on our projects, and then perhaps we are all customers of each other's work all along the way. A Lean operating system then is an organized implementation of Lean principles and practices that are combined to allow people to create, to operate in unison and create flow. So it's this idea that, as Rebecca said in her talk, that you might think it's Last Planner and somebody else might think it's value stream mapping and it's this or it's that or it's this way of thinking. And the fact of the matter is, it's all of these principles and practices coming together to create that flow. So go ahead, Nick. Again, really want to point out this part of the culture piece of it. And what is a culture? It's a way of thinking. It's behavior working that exists in a place, an organization, a project team, whatever it may be. But really want to focus on it is a different way of thinking. Those of us who are higher up on that Lean journey scale here realize that when you start thinking Lean, you start thinking it in everything you do and everywhere you go in life. And it gets hard to sometimes operate in the world because you see so much that isn't Lean, and you can't always be figuring out how to fix it, right? So Lean can really be applied to any aspect of your life. It can be business, it can be personal. I worked on a project where the administrative assistant was getting married, and she used one of our Lean tools, the Last Planner system, to plan her wedding, the most relaxed bride you've ever seen in your life. And Lean is really, it's about how the management system supports the work and empowers people to do their best work. Just as Zofia said, it's like we need to focus on how do we create the systems and include the people in doing it so that they can do their best work and they don't become what looks like a lazy person, right? They're engaged, they want to do work, they're empowered to do work. So go ahead, Zofia, you're up.
All right. So I've been asked to try to cover the history of lean in 4 minutes. I put up my timer here. And the reason I do this is you know that if you have to cast your mind back. I mean, we're looking back, over 100 years, and lean really roots deeply embedded in the manufacturing industry. If you go back to the father of scientific management, it was Frederick Taylor. He's often known for his stopwatch, and he observed, if you go into his primary source writings, those are the things that he actually wrote himself. He talks about some of the greatest problems in our industry is that managers often have no understanding of how long it takes for a worker to accomplish a task. And consequently, they are asking them to do things that are very impossible, which creates a lot of resentment. And therefore, that's why he used a stopwatch. And so he actually timed to see how long each task would take. Most of us are very familiar, of course, with Henry Ford, as Model T Ford very famously made the claim that you can have a Model T in any color you want as long as it's black. Famously popularized the assembly line. He certainly didn't invent it, but he certainly was as known for what he did. And then the most very interesting couple are Frank and Lillian Gilbreth. They were married. Frank is kind of a fascinating fellow because he came from a family where he had a single mother, and she had him, and she had a daughter as well. They really didn't have enough money to send both kids to college. And Frank realized this. He had been accepted to MIT, but he didn't have the funds. He said, go ahead, send my sister, because she's obviously a very talented musician, and I will apprentice to be a bricklayer. And his mother said, as long as you're the best bricklayer there is. And so he said, I will be. And so he went off and he worked starting out by watching bricklayers bend over and pick up a brick and butter it, and bend over again and pick up a brick and butter it. And he realized that this was a tremendous waste of effort and energy. And so he started by building a scaffolding so he could actually not have to bend over and butter the brick. And of course, his boss, who was a master bricklayer, made fun of him. He felt like he was kind of some upstart and he was not doing what he was told, started yelling at him. But Frank just went ahead and did what he did, and in fact became a millionaire. Looking back at this time zone, that was quite a lot of money when he was still young in his 20s. And he happened to win the heart of Lillian Gilbreth, who was, in fact, a trained industrial psychologist. She was one of the very first. And they, of course, they really clicked, shared a lot of things in common, and in fact, a family of children, which they eventually had. And if you ever get a chance to read the book, the original book, I'm not talking about the movie, but if you get a chance to read the book, Cheaper by the Dozen, it was written by 2 of their kids, and they experimented on their kids all the time, and the kids just loved it. I mean, they absolutely loved it. And it's when I teach lean in my class and we read these primary source writings, we start with that book because it really shows that productivity can be a lot of fun, and you can actually experiment on your own kids. I've done that with my nieces and nephews, and they've loved it as well. So anyway, just to kind of put that on your radar screen, if you want to introduce it to your own people, that's a great book to do with. W. Rees Deming, Total Quality Management, of course, had tremendous influence on Japan. Taiichi Ono, we all know about Toyota, or those of you may know about him. He was an engineer who you'll get introduced to the 5 Whys and a lot of what he did, which was substantial and influenced the entire West. And then if you get a chance to read Eliyahu Goldratt and all the way up to Liker, I'm moving very quickly through this because, again, my time is short. Jeffrey Liker's read, oftentimes we say the Bible of Lean, which is called, the Toyota Way. James Womack, who introduced Lean to the West. And then Lean made a leap into the construction industry. And so really drew from all these years of principles and experimentation and things like this, And then, so you see people like Greg Howell, Larry Costello, and Glenn Ballard, and Will Lichtig, and Iris Tomaline. And these are the people who actually influenced me when I was doing my PhD at UC Berkeley. And of course, you all are very much part of this. If we could, list all the names, I mean, it would be enormous, right? The amount of invention and innovation that takes place within individual companies. But anyway, just want you to know that lean is not a for the month. Okay, it has deep roots. And why do we know that? Is because when people write, all these people referenced each other. So we knew that they had continuously improved upon the work of those who had gone before, which is really cool. Next slide, please.
Good job, Zofia. All right, so let's move on to the goals of lean design and construction. Number one, achieve reliable workflow. Man, everybody wants this. And we're going to see later when we talk about that deadly waste that, waiting is one of the big wastes. And so everybody wants the work to flow. It's happiness. And this is the only way to make the work flow, really. And this is where lean starts, is understanding value in the eye of the customer. And so many people are dislocated from that. So your job is to be that person, the chief value engineer who really socializes what the customer values. And then waste is anything that gets in the way of value, anything that consumes resources that doesn't transform the product into what the customer wants. And then all of this takes a system view. So we must optimize the whole and not the parts. It's often said that expertise exists vertically and value is created horizontally. So it's only when we see that horizontal view of how things go together can we start to create value and make the work flow. And then develop a discipline of learning and continuous improvement. Of course, we've been talking about this, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about the scientific method and other methods of CI. So some of the benefits of lean, a safe working environment. I heard Kristin kick this off in the plenary. And of course, I think one of the big things that I like about lean is continuous improvement. And one of the dangers in safety is drift. It's when things are the same and we drift and they become the norm and they become white noise. But if you're continuously improving everything, then it's always changing and you're on alert. And that's what we want from people. And that's what happens when people are engaged. And of course, there's some other ones here that I'm sure you're looking at like, yes, give me more of these things. These are all more cowbell. We want more of these things. And so the satisfied stakeholders is really this empowering people. And, this is the happiest I've ever been in my career. And I would say that in my time, bringing lean is, I've never had more high fives in my career because we find unlikely contenders. We find people with more to contribute. So, a lot of people say like, oh, lean costs more. I shouldn't be doing it. And that's, of course, hooey, because when we make lean the culture, then it's just the way that we do the work. And so LCI went ahead and engaged with Dodge Data and Analytics to do a study and prove it. And so we have a white paper. And I think what's really beautiful about this slide and showing the correlation of lean to project outcomes is, yes, I love that projects that have a high intensity of lean are completed under budget at a rate of 2 times those that don't have it. But what we really love about this, and what I love, and what owners tell me all the time, is that what I really want is certainty. I just want the project to happen at the right schedule and get it online and let me start producing. Let me start creating the value for my customers. And so by completing a header schedule or on schedule 3 times what low intensity lean projects occur, that's really, I think, the goal. This one should have a golden nugget next to it, Kristin. And of course, this paper is available at the LCI website. So I'm not going to go into the definition of high and low intensity. You're probably asking that question. Yeah, go see. We welcome you to come find out.
All right. So going back to the idea of the lean operating system, as we move through the rest of the session here, we're going to be addressing it that way. And the way that LCI looks at it is to help us break down our thinking is that there's principles. Lean's focused on people. And so how do we address the system part of the people? And then there's going to be practices. And our goal today is to make you aware of some of these things. We certainly are not going to be in the 2 hours that we really have of time together able to help you become aware of all of them or really teach them to you. So today is about awareness. So we'll move into some talking about the principles, and what we're going to cover will really be the 6 tenets, LCI 6 tenets of Lean, and then we'll get into those 8 wastes. So you may note that the 6 tenets of Lean align with the benefits that Nick just went through, and underlying all the benefits as he went through them was the respect for people. First and foremost, Lean is about respect for people. And respect for people is really about the attitude that regards people's ability to think, really respecting and understanding that people can think, people know how to solve things, people know how to do their work the best. It looks like the engineers talking to the trades who may be installing the work and understanding that they know how to install it, invest, and that might influence the way it's being designed. Respect for people goes very deep. I think most of us wake up in the morning and think that we respect people, and we probably do. But this is talking about respect for people in a deeper and deeper way. It's one of those things that I don't think anybody hits the respect for people mastery. That is one of those that there's more and more ways to look at this and see what it means. So that underlies all of the benefits and everything that we do. So as Nick went through, it's about really optimizing the whole, not the pieces and the parts. So much of our projects are about different disciplines or trades optimizing their piece of it, their part of the budget, making sure that they do well. And this is about focusing on optimizing the whole. And of course, if we're optimizing the whole and we're respecting people, we're not going to hurt a trade by making a decision to do something one way or the other. It is still going back to that respect for people. It's very much about that generate value, focus on value from the customer's perspective. I think Nick said the words, if it's not something the customer is willing to pay for, it's not adding value. So you need to look at that very closely. Eliminating the waste that is processes. But we need to understand also that this idea of value, you can't just eliminate waste without knowing what's of value to the end customer and to downstream customers from you within a process. You might eliminate something and be hurting somebody downstream. And that comes back to that's not very respectful to people. So again, it comes back to this optimize the whole, generate the value, eliminate the waste. This will help you focus on flow. And as Nick said, flow is the happiness. It makes us all happy to have flow happening. People can do their work. People feel engaged. The work happens. The budgets get hit, and the schedules get hit. And then the absolute other foundation is this idea of continuous improvement so that things don't get stale, so that we realize there's more and more ways we can do things better. Continuous improvement is not lessons learned at the end of the project. Continuous improvement is every day. How can we do better the next day? Sometimes it's half days. Check in on what did we do this morning? What can we do better in the afternoon? How do we continuously improve our work? So those are the 6 tenets of Lean. There are 14 principles to Lean. The Toyota way, the Bible, as Zofia put it, covers, but this is the 6 tenets that we focus on coming up from LCI's perspective. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, so let's talk about eliminating waste. And so let's run through them, because really what we want people in a lean environment to do is to not say, this is a wasteful process. I want to know what the waste is. And once we know what the waste is, then we can start to measure it. And when we can start to measure it, then we can think about optimizing it, reducing it, improving it, any of those things. So a wise person once told me, in God we trust, everybody else has to show the data. And so what I'm looking for when I'm talking about waste is tell me what the waste is. So let's start at the top. Over and under production. The overproduction, I'm glad that we have under in here too, but really overproduction is really the Mac Daddy of all the waste because in many times they're interconnected. So when you overproduce, you're likely to incur the other waste as well. So none of these wastes really happen on their own. So overproduction is producing more than is necessary at the moment. And of course, this is one of the pillars of the Toyota production system, which is just-in-time production. And of course, this is under a lot of fire right now in our supply chain woes. And so, having just-in-time doesn't mean you make yourself so skinny that you're vulnerable. You need to know what your critical components are and understand your supply chain so deeply that you really understand where the vulnerabilities are down the line. And because in construction, we are so transactional and commoditized with our supply chain, we tend to overlook these things and don't deeply integrate our supply chain. The waiting is people waiting for work or work waiting for people. And I think that this is the biggest waste on construction projects is the waiting. And the waiting, of course, disrupts flow. And really, the flow is so necessary in order to respond to a pull signal. We say pull planning, and that's great. The pull is just a signal to do something. But if you don't have flow, you can't respond to the pull signal. So that's why in the operating principles of lean, flow comes before pull. Unnecessary transportation is moving anything more than is required to create value for the project or for the customer. And my own studies show that more than 50% of the time when a tradesperson goes to do some work, they need to transport something out of the way. Normally, it's not their own materials, which also compounds the problem and the waiting. Overprocessing is doing more than is necessary than to create value for the customer. So overshining something, putting extra layers of paint on it, things like this that are more than is necessary. I mean, there's a ton of overprocessing and administrative actions in our work cultures. Things go up to the CEO many times when it's not even necessary. Excess inventory, of course, if you have excess inventory, what's likely to happen is that you're going to end up moving it because it's in the way, of course. So we look for in lean operating systems, how many times are we turning our inventory over? We want to have as little as possible on hand in order to meet the value for the customer. Unnecessary motion is related to people. So where transportation is related to things, motion is related to people. We don't want the surgeon in the operating room having to run to the supply closet to get a scalpel when we're on the table. So we want things close to the point of use, and we want to be looking at how we can decrease the motion and also make it ergonomically responsible motion. It goes back to respect for people. Defects, of course, are things that don't meet the quality standard and have to be redone or scrapped. So we often measure scrap rates. And then, of course, the unused creativity of team members, not listening, not speaking up, just people not really also working at the top of their license too. We want everybody doing things to their highest level. And all of this is wrapped up in the scientific method. It's what I learned in 7th grade when I was dissecting a frog. I like to think of lean as the science of making things better. And in order to do that, we need to close learning loops. And what's beautiful about PDCA is every time we close the PDCA cycle, it's a cycle of learning. And so your competitive advantage in this marketplace, in this vastly rapidly changing marketplace, is your ability to be a learning organization and a learning project team. So we demand a mindset of continuous improvement. And of course, all of this is predicated on check and adjust. It's the hypothesis. What am I planning to do? I do it. What did I think was going to happen? Did it actually happen? Why or why not? Let's act again and make an adjustment and run it again. And so this is really the fun of it. So we are in the science of making things better. Look, that one got a golden nugget. I love it. Thank you, Kristin.
Okay, we are not making up time. Our
No, we're going the other
visual cues are
direction.
telling us. Okay, let's go.
All right, so let's try our hand at identifying waste only. So I am going to throw in the chat see how I do with this. In the chat, you're going to see a link to a mural, a digital whiteboard. And in the breakout rooms, you're going to be assigned to one of the three of us presenters, and we're going to guide you in an exercise to see how we do identifying waste. See you on the other side. Go ahead. Are you going to do it, Zofia?
Okay, yeah. So now I take over. We're going to send you into 3 breakout rooms, and then I'm going to actually send our co-hosts to be with you. So please make sure you copy and paste that neural chat to make sure that once you get into the breakout room, that you're actually able to go to the mural. Okay, so you'll have to accept once I send you to the breakout room. Okay, all right.
Wish us luck.
Rooms. Yeah, good luck. All right, people are rejoining us. There's still a lot of 43 seconds before the breakout rooms close. Wow, rooms 1 and 2, they can't tear themselves away, I can see. So that's a good sign, right? So yeah. Moving forward.
Okay.
All right. We're just waiting for a few more people to rejoin us. I think they've been, okay. Pretty much everybody's coming back. That's so great.
Well, it wasn't the smoothest getting to the outline and getting some people getting to the right part of the work. I think we can improve on that. And really what I could have shown on this breakout slide is how to get to the outline. I should have had a snip of the page, and I'll do that during the break for our next exercise. So I'm seeing how I could have improved this right off the bat.
Awesome job though, Nick, doing it on the fly. That's what it's about.
Yes, no,
Oh,
and my
yeah.
group had some things that I wouldn't have thought of, man. I think always one of the best things about, opening up your shop or whatever to have visitors come in is that you learn. So I really do appreciate that.
Well, I'm going to say that my team was a little quiet, and I don't know that I had a lot of people come in. So if people want to put in the chat, maybe, maybe people couldn't get in mural. Maybe people aren't allowed to get in mural. Give us a couple things if you have something that, again, we can try to address, because we will go back into mural later. So we will have an opportunity to have Nick work during the break.
And
not
my
very
team,
respectful.
yeah, no worries. And could I add a little bit? I thought my team was very active. The one thing I did notice that there was a tendency, and it's a tendency for all of us to immediately come up with a root cause and a countermeasure. And what we're trying to do today is to try to hold you back a little bit. I mean, first, just identify what the waste is, because remember, on the case of the repair person game that we played, there's multiple possible reasons, right? And we all have a tendency to want to jump to what we think is the main reason. So we just have to begin a little bit with just identifying, first of all, what the problem is. And that's what this really is. And then we'll have another exercise where we'll go through root cause analysis and take it down a step further.
Yeah, the big takeaway from my group was that really people worked in the over processing, and that one is one that usually eludes people. So I was really happy to see that, that there was too many steps and many processes that weren't adding value.
Yeah, my
really
team
good takeaway.
My team focused in there too. We got some in under the unused employee creativity, which usually takes people a long time to think of where those might be, but not collaborating or not respecting that, some folks may have some great new ideas and ways to do things. So ours were across all of them. We had a few in all of them, I would say.
Yep.
Definitely no trouble identifying waste, that's for sure. We know it's there.
Yeah, we had defects, damaged valves and shipping. All right, so someone just had something happen with their valve. I'm sorry about that. that one felt like really near and dear. Dang it.
Okay. Well, maybe we should keep moving here to see if we can get us back on track with time.
Okay, so we're just going to revisit this three gears: the principles, practices, and of course people. And people. The idea about lean, of course, is that lean is not always intuitive. People are coming from onboarding from various different practices in the past. And so lean does require a reorientation and a certain amount of training, to be honest, and education to try to help people understand that this may not be what they're used to. And so that's, we talked a little bit about that. And this is really just to give you a taste of lean culture and lean processes. Conditions of satisfaction is really critical. And I just want to point that out, as Kristin had mentioned earlier, really, what are the conditions of satisfaction at every meeting? Before you start any meeting, you need to define that. And of course, obviously, the conditions of satisfaction from the owner's perspective is absolutely critical. And to be able to work like a vector as a team to be able to achieve those. And anyway, these are some of the terms that you'll see used a great deal. Next slide, please. Okay. Some of you may have seen this already, but I may have forgotten what it actually means. So I'm going to go through it as well. If you look at this chart very clearly, you'll see that there's sort of a red line that kind of, as you see, it has a sort of slope that goes from the beginning of a project all the way over toward the end of the project. It's cost of changes. And let me just share with you, you probably have an intuitive grasp of this. A lot of you have experienced this as well. Imagine I'm living up in Canada, for example, and it really would behoove me to design a building so that there's windows that are facing the south, so it gets most sun, right? And overhangs, of course, because you don't want to overheat the building during the summer. Well, just say you suddenly realize that after going through designing the building, you had the HVAC people come in and you've really figured it all out. But let's say you realized that and you realized it late in the game. Well, at this point, it's really going to cost you quite a lot to make that change, because now you have to not only knock down some pre-existing structures, you have to re-engage your team and so on and so forth. So obviously, if you think it through, where you should have been making those decisions is really at the very beginning, during that project development, schematic development, and early in that place, because that's the ability to impact cost and functional capabilities is very high at the beginning of the project. Well, if you look at this yellow bar here, traditional design process, I mean, we really, in very traditional design bid build systems, we bring in the team, but we bring in the team where it actually costs quite a lot to make those changes. Where should we be making those changes, and where should we be making those really smart moves is really at the very beginning. I remember seeing a kind of a motto once, said it was a boys club, and it said, it's better to build boys than men. And it's the idea is that if you start early, you can actually, obviously it ultimately is going to cost you much less. And ultimately going to create a lot less problems later on. And we all intuitively know that, but if this graph helps sometimes when you need to explain it as to why you have more meetings, why you end up having to bring in people at the very beginning, this is exactly why, is because you'll have a lot fewer change orders, a lot fewer RFIs, and they'll be much happier in the end. And the project, we say, slow down to speed up. If you slow down and spend time planning, you can speed up the actual process, and the overall time it'll take is considerably less. Next slide, please. So we just wanted to remind you that this concept of with every pair of hands comes a free brain. And you heard Nick say that this is the happiest he's ever been on a project. And I would agree with him, because in the past, I was lured to a large extent to the whole concept of lean, because I had worked on some very non-lean projects for many years and felt like this is not the way to do it, where I felt like I was not included, where I could see obvious ways to improve the project. And then when I got experience on my very first lean project, it was wonderful. It was this feeling that people actually respected my ideas. And if you think about the people who are the boots on the ground, I mean, all of these wonderful ideas that they have, if you spend some time, say once every 2 weeks during a Kaizen event, and you invite them and you say, look, let's take a look at that idea and let's run it through the plan, do, check, act cycle, which is a scientific process, as Nick had mentioned, you actually have the ability to have people want to jump out of bed in the morning and feel like they're not just robots, but they are actually human beings who have great ideas and are creative thinkers, and oftentimes have a lot more experience about things that we never even knew was possible. Next slide, please. sometimes this is represented as an inverted pyramid. In a traditional system, you have this sort of, very slightly autocratic way of ordering people around and telling them what to do. In Lean, you actually have people who are at the top of the organization, or actually at the bottom of the organization, because their job is to make sure, again, that those who come to work are put in a position where they can do their best work. And that is really why we sometimes portray that as an inverted pyramid. So how can you help them do their best work and feel very excited and motivated and energized when they come to work? Next slide, please.
Okay, let's keep going. Our visual cues are telling us we're still off. But it is time for us to take a 30-minute break. So Central Time, I have 9:42. So that brings us back at 10 after the hour. Is that correct? Am I doing math this early in the morning?
You did it.
Okay. So let's come back at 10 after the hour. And we'll get going.
And maybe people want to stay in, but they can just simply stop their video if they'd like, and they can put themselves on mute in the lower left-hand corner. And so that way you don't have to worry about re-enter. So just press stop your video, and we will see you at 10 after the hour.
Hey, Zofia. Hopefully,
Hi,
folks
Kristin.
You're funny, Ben. Yep, the cat's still there and hasn't eaten the donut. I would have eaten it.
You're really hungry, though.
Good point. We should now change the slide to a cat without a donut.
Yeah, he's ready for Halloween, that's for sure. Yeah.
He's got the pumpkin spice, doesn't he?
Hey, virtual donuts are healthy.
What's that?
Virtual donuts are healthy.
Oh, virtual donuts are healthy. Okay.
There you go. That's a new one. I like that.
That's right.
Do you know, kind of. It's sparking my appetite. I'm going to gorge later on.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you for the empathy, Kristin. That's a lean hallmark.
Look at it this way. This donut probably has fur stuck in the icing, so do anything you can to make it less appealing.
So I think we're working on time to get back going. While we make sure folks are coming in, I am going to mention Nick. Great job adjusting the slide with the time to return. A little more PDCA, continuous improvement going on during the presentation. Thanks for doing that.
I got another improvement coming up later on.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, we are going to keep going. I have that it is 10 after, time to go. So have at it, Nick.
Okay. Well, I'll harken back an old commercial about donuts. Remember Dunkin' Donuts? Now I'm from the Northeast of the US. So Dunkin' Donuts, time to make the donuts. So it is time to get going. So now we're going to start talking about some lean practices. And, people really get enamored with tools, and I love them tool. I mean, I love a good quiver full of tools so I can tackle things. But I want to reinforce that the principle here is to stay in love with the problem, not the solution. And so the idea is that we selectively choose the tool to solve the problem. But with that in mind, let's talk about some tools. So the big room mindset, mindsets and mental models are key to the transformation that's ahead of us in this industry. So it's abandoning mental models that say that we need a full set of drawings. It's those mindsets they shouldn't exist. And so Zofia shared the McClamey curve that showed the value of being involved early. And that's really what embodies the big room mindset, that you come in with the scientific mind in mind, that method is there, and that we come to tackle something so urgent that we cannot turn our back away from it, and that the collaboration is really key. And collaboration means that we go for win-wins. It's very often confused with compromise, which is win-lose, and collaboration is thrown around so cheaply in our industry and society that I'm on a mission to change that. And the big room mindset can help us get there. Visual management is critical to a lean operating system. It says that really what the gold standard for me is that I can walk into any space so long as that I'm attached to that practice, and I can tell if we're ahead or behind within 10 seconds. I want to be able to see all the resources that are involved in a process and understand their status. Target value delivery is really operating in value streams. So it's understanding what are the things that are going to go into the project and designing to that target, not the other way around. We do target value delivery. We can banish value engineering forever, or maybe just rightfully put it back in its right place, other than stripping components and things that people find dear in a project. The last planner system, we've been talking about this, is it's a fantastic method of production control in Lean. And I really look forward to the overlay of this with AWP. The last planner system is really respect for people. It's saying that the last planner, those people that are most closely associated with the work, should define the work, another Lean hallmark. And I've just been going off on collaborative problem solving, finding win-win. And of course, a key skill is root cause analysis, getting to the bottom of things. So these blue ones are really the ones that are most associated with the Lean Construction Institute, not to say that they also don't love these other ones, which are A3 thinking. Of course, the A3 gets its name because it is the size of a sheet of paper, an 11 by 17, where we're doing problem solving on one sheet of paper. It is literally getting on the same sheet of paper. 5S is Lean for workplace organization, very much associated with skinning up inventories, but also critical to safety. Many companies use 6S, where the 6S is for safety. Others just say, hey, if I do these workplace organizations, I will create a safe environment. Either way, I love it. Go look up 5S. It's an awesome starting point for a Lean journey. Set-based design is looking at multiple ways to solve a problem and thinking about them in parallel, and waiting until what we would call the last responsible moment to make a decision. So this takes a really keen sense of collaboration and looking at production control. And there is literally so much more, but again, stay in love with the problem, not the solution. How am I doing? Was that fast enough?
You did fine.
Okay,
Now we'll go into all of them a little bit more, just a little bit more.
Okay. So, we talked about the big room. So visual management, does it look like visual management is happening here? Yes, there is critical information that is required to do the work. So we come into this room with a sense of purpose. I like this slide because it shows two pictures. Here we see a team very early in a project looking at many different concepts and trying to understand the way forward. So this would really be a great example of set-based design, looking at many different variants and making sure that we hit the target value. And then down lower, we're looking at a lot of the people that are closest to the work. We see safety vests on and safety shoes on. So these people are talking about what it takes to get the work done. And you can see them really almost getting to a handshake agreement, and like, I promise to do this for you, and that will unlock your potential to do the work. So we've been talking about the purpose of this, and I think some of the other key traits, aside from the things that you're seeing here, are really that you need to be aware of your environment in a big room. You need to be your authentic self in the big room. Speak your truth. Don't be held back. You need to be actualizing your potential and the potential of the team. And we do hold each other accountable. That's another method of respect. And then adaptation is another one of the 5 A's that I really like to think about when I think about the behaviors that help the big room purpose happen. So in many cases, big room delivery is really behavior-led project delivery, and behaviors are the very best leading indicator of a process or a system that is going to work. So we've talked about visual information goals. I've been going off on it for a little bit, but what does it do? Communicating information clearly, letting us see the deviations. We create standards and visual controls so that abnormal sticks out. That's a beautiful part of visual management and visual controls. And visual management also means that we can manage, put the management in visual management. I can see and react and have a response. And we highlight the appropriate information. And of course, clear and effective communication. I've been talking about that. I know within 10 seconds if we're ahead or behind. I know what my role is. I know where the resources are. And we also get the right information immediately. So you can see, reflecting back on our 8 wastes, how visual information can really be a countermeasure to those wastes. Oh, this one got golden nuggets. Visual information, love it. This is a really cool example. I like this. So the photo cred for this one is at Penn State University, which has been doing great work on lean project delivery. And so you can see up at the top and the left, they've got some pillars that they consider to be really the things that they should be measuring on a consistent basis. So submittals and material, how fast are we getting, how fast are we actualizing the supply chain to give us the materials we need on site? And there's some graphing going on there. And it looks like maybe those periods were very long and they're shrinking. 6S, we've been talking about that, workplace organization and safety. So that's something that they want to do. Change orders, I'm not sure exactly how they're measuring it, but change orders are going to be critical to an owner. And then PPC is the furthest one to the right. That's plan % complete. At what rate are we doing the things that we said we would do? The 79% over there may be the target or it could be the actual, but you can see in this graph that the rate of plan % complete, the rate of our reliable promises has been increasing on this project. So what I would hope from this owner is that they are creating this same whiteboard on every one of their projects. So when we walk into a Penn State project, these are the things that are critical to quality. These are the things that we measure.
All right. So Nick did a great little bit of an introduction to target value delivery. I'm not going to go too much into it. Again, that word culture comes back because it's a way of thinking differently about how we're going about designing and delivering the project. It really happens holistically through the whole project. This isn't just a design approach. It's why it's called target value delivery, because it continues into construction. But I want to bring forward this idea of creating or generating creative tension. That is a great idea. And going back to what Nick said with collaboration, now, how do you make it win-win? How do you drive up value, yet drive costs down? And that is the goal of target value delivery right there. And in that alone, not compromising. If you read the Toyota Way, chapters 5 and 6 are about the Toyota, the Prius and the Lexus design. And a lot of these concepts come forward. This yet that thinking drives innovation. That is how innovation happens. Somebody doesn't just wake up and say, I think I'm going to be innovative today. Right? You got to solve a problem. How do you solve it as a win-win? We're driving value up. We're driving costs down. How are we doing it? I've seen amazing innovation happen on projects with that. Go ahead, Nick. And going back to what Nick said about eliminating that traditional value engineering, devalue engineering, design, estimate, redesign cycle that we tend to go through, target value delivery is, well, if we look at traditional, it's really about people design what they're designing. We price it. Yeah, we're designing towards a budget. You know, that all we know is happening. But we stop, we price it, and we figure out that we are over budget, and we loop way back to design. If we're bringing forward target value delivery practices, set-based design, all these other things, the idea is we really set our budget, our mark, what we're going to hit. It's our cost model. And then we design to it. We don't make decisions until we know we're hitting our cost model. We're making them along the way using that set-based design, but we're not going really far down a road where what we have to come back is take off things that the owner fell in love with. I always say we told the owner they could have chocolate chip cookies, and the first time we're over budget, we go back and tell them, now you can't have your chocolate chip cookies, because we can't go back and change the steel structure at this point. But maybe that's where we could have had the savings. I had the opportunity to work with a team that was an integrated project delivery team on a greenfield hospital in California. And that team, staying very strong in set-based design and target value delivery, created the lightest steel frame hospital that would be accepted by the agencies, to a huge savings to their budget. If they had waited, just designed what they were going to design and come back, priced it, they would have been over budget, and it would have been way too far down the road to come back and change what we were doing with the steel frame. As Zofia said, go slow to go fast. They went slow, but they went really fast. They delivered this hospital very fast and an amazing outcomes. So target value delivery is indeed a very deeper approach. A lot of folks feel like it's, yeah, we all have a budget and we all design to the budget. It's taking very different practices to do that, to ensure that we're doing it. Two resources out there that you can go look at: Target Value Delivery book. These are both available through the Lean Construction Institute, and the others focused more on target value design. Go ahead, Nick. I won't take too much time there. So we're catching up a little bit. Here's our visual management. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the last planner system. Again, Nick did a great overview, but really it's a production planning system. It's bringing about more predictable workflow. You're hearing some themes in here of the day here. Rapid learning, right? There's continuous improvement, rapid learning, and it can be used in both programming, design, construction, and commissioning of projects. So the entire, and even complete activation of projects. So the entire turn frame of a project, this can be used. Go ahead, Nick. I do just want to quickly mention that the last planner system is owned and trademarked by the Lean Construction Institute. Go ahead. Benefits. Here we go again with some themes. Improves communication and reliability. Folks are talking about the work they're going to be doing, and they make commitments to do their work. It fosters an enjoyable environment, trust, and collaboration. So I'm going to join in on the Nick and Zofia bandwagon with this one about enjoyable, and just say that, you know, since working with Lean, it's been the most enjoyable time of my life too. It's people enjoy this work. We have a saying that once they become a bent spoon, once they're exposed to Lean, they can't go back in the traditional slot, so they don't go back in the drawer. Very true. It's promoting that early stakeholder engagement that Zofia talked about, the importance of that. Improves the visibility of the project plan, transparency of it. When I was working on a project, a superintendent said to me, I'm more relaxed than I've ever been on any project, and this was a high intense project under a lot of pressure. He said, I know what's going on at all times because we were using strong visual management. Creates team buy-in, alignment, rapid learning through metrics, revealing areas for improvement. Go ahead, Nick. You can just go right on to it.
That was a mistake.
Use through all phases. Go ahead.
That was a mistake.
Good timing. Keep me going. So the last planner system is based on conversation. It's the conversation between what we call the last planners, the people who are closest to leading the team doing the work. This is not done by people who are not touching the work. The people, respect for people, the people leading the work know how they're going to do it the best. So it's a commitment-based system. It integrates 5 levels of conversation. And the first level is milestone planning, where we set the milestones. And sometimes there's already a schedule that was done by some folks in a corner, the contract schedule, whatever it may be. But this is an opportunity to check in on that and make sure the milestones are right. How often do we get a schedule and we already know those milestones are just misaligned, off, not going to work? You know, we've thrown it out the door and we're already on to something else. This is an opportunity to do that. The best is when the team can work it out by themselves, creating the milestone schedule from the completion, working backwards, using pull methodology. And we'll talk a little bit more about pull methodology in a moment. From there, we go to the phase pull plan, which is basically moving from one milestone to the other, where we specify the handoffs of the work. We get very, very clear on our handoffs. And between these two conversations, what we're saying is we're aligning as we walk out of the conversation, saying we should be able to do this work. Then we move to look ahead planning. Look ahead planning is usually in the 6, 8, 10 week time frame. And we're really looking ahead to make the work ready. We are removing constraints, making sure that when the day comes to do the work, it can be executed as planned. At this point, we're saying we can do this work. Whoa, take me backwards.
No, that was
Go
a
forward.
mistake. Sorry.
Forward. Go ahead. Whoa. There we go. At this point, up until this point, we are doing what we call creating the network of the commitments. You can see that language there is should, can. After we've done our look ahead planning, we go to weekly work planning. And this is the week prior to the upcoming week. We plan our work in detail, where we're going to be, what we're going to do each day. And at this point, we make promises to each other. We say we will do this. And we can make promises a week ahead. 12 weeks ahead, it's a little hard to make a promise, right? That's why we can do. But we're going to move into weekly work planning and make our promises. And then each and every week, we're going to learn, and maybe sometimes daily, learn from how did we do with our promises. We're going to measure what's called percent plan complete, our PPC. How did we do against what we said we were going to do? And then we're going to look at why didn't we do it? What were our reasons for variance? And we're going to look at those reasons. And if they're reoccurring or likely to reoccur, we want to take action to make sure that they don't. We want to use some root cause analysis and some other of our tools to set the system up to make sure that what happens doesn't happen again. It's not about going and beating up a person because they didn't keep their commitment. It's saying, how did the system not allow this person to keep their commitment? And then we look at, so that conversation is what did we do and what did we learn? So that is the 5 connected conversations of Last Planner system at a very high level. As we go down it, we become more and more granular. So this concept of push versus pull, with kind of that terms come up a couple times today. And push is really where a central system is releasing work, information, directives, whatever it is, according to a plan, not based on a signal saying, I am ready for it. Pull is based on a signal saying, I am ready for that work. It signals it. It's done from using the idea of making requests. So you request to have something in place. And that's really what we're doing when we do Last Planner system is we are making requests and promises, requests and promises. In order for me to make the promise to do this, I will need to have this. And there's a golden nugget placed there that push versus pull is very, very different concept of work. And you can go ahead, Nick. And now, Nick, we're going to be able to move through these fairly quickly, but basically we're starting, the idea of pull is we start planning at the milestone. So in wall, ready for JIP. Our first person, Joe, says at the top of it, he's saying what he is going to do. He's going to get the closing inspection. In order to do that, he needs insulation in place. Go ahead, Nick. So Jay comes in and says, I'll get the insulation in place, but I need to have pipe test in place, the pipe tested. And so you can see each of these at the top is what somebody's going to promise to do. And at the bottom, what they need in order to do it. You can start to see the bottom request is answered by a promise to do the work. And that is what we're doing when we're in the phase pool planning session, is literally going through the work this way. It helps us eliminate gaps. If people know what they do, we sequence the work correctly. It is messy as can be. It's lovely to see it here on a nice little PowerPoint, but it is messy. It is great. It is conversational. Everybody's up at the board working on it. It isn't somebody telling us what we're going to do. It's the last planners planning their work together. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's move on from that, Nick, to Zofia, talking about tact time, closely coupled.
Hey, so as Kristin mentioned, the Last Planner system is pretty much used, I think, uniformly by anybody who's implementing Lean. And the concept of tact time, which is very much, again, borrowed heavily from the manufacturing world, is really not a new concept either. Ironically, if you look at the Empire State Building, I mean, it was built in just 1 year and 45 days for 102 stories. So we're looking at a building that did not at the time have any computers. And this was the schedule that was done. You can see this velocity or this parallel flow of activities as they moved from floor to floor to floor up through the building. And so, but now it's really starting to be embraced by those in the lean world. You can visualize it a little bit like a train that is really moving across the site. So if you think about an assembly line, most of us are very well aware of, you've probably been in your grade school, you may have visited, like, here we have in Texas, we have these ice cream shops and things like this. And if you get a chance to visit a Toyota Way factory or Toyota factory, which are scattered around, I recommend it as well. But the idea is that you have the product that's essentially moving through an assembly line and the people are stationary. In the case of a building, you have the people themselves are moving and the product itself is stationary. And these people, you can think of them as being a train. So here's an example of, in fact, a lot of times when you do this takt time planning in a war room, a big room where you put this up, they will actually literally have a train and they'll have the little cars going along the way, drywall, heating, electrical, drywall. If you have, some people will say, can you use this for non-repetitive work? And the answer is yes. It just needs to be designated so that you have some sort of similar work density per space. And in this particular case, where you have the painted lines on the floor, where you have A, B, C, D, and you have this train basically moving at a consistent velocity through the site. And then takt time schedules, here's a little metronome. Those of you who have a music background, you might relate to this and this idea of moving at this very consistent beat or this consistent takt. So that's very much part of the world of flow. Next slide, please. So I think you're getting kind of the idea that here you have this large group of people who are now being asked to possibly work in a situation that they're not used to, a culture that is kind of perhaps new to them. And so what we do is lean does require a fair amount of training. And again, there is no, one is through these lectures where we're sort of, sharing a lot of information, which of course we need to do. But the other is by playing simulations, because there's nothing quite like an aha moment. A lot of lean simulations are set up where you play multiple rounds. And in the first round, you kind of play it business as usual. This is a very famous one that's used a lot called the Lego airplane game from Visionary Products. It's used in the manufacturing industry. It's also used by the construction industry. And the idea is to teach exactly what Kristin talked about, which was about pull and batch sizing, and so each round that you play, you collect metrics, and so people learn to understand the impact of each of these individual lean interventions. LCI has developed a simulation called the Make a Card Game, which is a lot less expensive, but basically teaches the same thing, and a lot less to carry if you have to, if you're in the situation where you have a multinational organization or you have to go from one side to the next. Actually, it's very similar to the Lego airplane game, but obviously a lot less heavy on your suitcase. And again, it's incredibly useful because by the time most people play these simulations, they kind of get it. And so as you can imagine, this is a prerequisite if you're going to start to implement something like takt time, for example. Next slide, please. All right, so now we're going to revisit our old friend, the Repair Co simulation. But as this time, we're going to take it to the next level. Okay, so if you remember the first time we played it, we talked a lot about, what were the possible reasons why our repair person was not meeting the desired outcome of 8 calls per day. And we were able to brainstorm collectively a lot of possible reasons. And now we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to do something called the 5 whys root cause analysis. And 5 is, there's a wonderful chapter in Toyota Way where they talk about, the machine is leaking oil, and why is the machine leaking oil? And it's because the gasket is deteriorated. And why is the gasket deteriorating? You drill all the way down to the final root cause. And we're going to do something very similar with this, because in the end, that will help set you as a manager up to understanding, first of all, there's obviously going to be more likely causes like frequency. If you remember, we had more likely causes or frequencies, and that includes our Pareto chart. And then once we want to hit the biggest cause, which is where you want to focus your efforts at the very beginning, and then you want to drill down. And the question is, why do you want to drill down? And that is just, I'm going to, spoiler alert, the reason you want to drill down is because if you actually introduce a countermeasure at a higher level as opposed to the root cause, then the problem will reoccur. And you're trying to create a situation where that continuous improvement is actually permanent. Okay, so I've kind of given it away, but we're going to do a little bit of an experiment right now. We're going to go back to our breakout rooms. You'll probably all randomized. You might be meeting new people with new, and I want to also invite our hosts to, you can share your own screen in the breakout room. I think last time there were some people who maybe had some difficulty engaging in Mural. And so if you share your screen, then at least they can see what other people are doing. And so you should have that functionality in Zoom as well. So thank you very much. Nick has actually put the Mural link back into the chat. And I will go ahead and send everybody out to their various locations. And like I said, you'll have to accept it. And for those of you who were not here during the first round, make sure that, once you accept it, you also carry the Mural link with you, but I will also send it through the broadcast to all. So let me open all rooms. I will see you soon. We will all see you soon. We're making our way back in. Let's just wait a few moments.
Okay, as we're here, I'm going to point out we're supposed to be done in 6 minutes, just as an FYI. I know, Nick, you got a couple things to go through. We may need to move them kind of quickly. And what I'm going to do,
Kristin, just to make sure everybody got the point that at the end, this is, of course, the idea is that if you go down to the root cause, you can and eventually come up with a countermeasure, which is, if you take a lean course, you'll understand the next level. And so that we're just giving you a taste for that. But the idea is to permanently solve the problem. That's why you drill down to the root cause. Okay, thanks.
you're on mute.
How did that happen? Thank you. So let's go ahead and capture a data point. Hey, people, jump in on this. So I want to know, when problems creep up on your projects, do they get resolved such they can never occur again? Never. The operative word.
So Nick and Zofia, I am going to pull out a couple minutes early and let you guys finish around, because I do have to get back into the main room.
Okay.
To moderate. I will say that the next thing coming up is going to be a break. So you can decide with your group here what you guys want to do regarding that. But I'm gonna have to go back and moderate in the main room.
I think we'll just finish on time. I think people deserve their breaks.
Yeah, I do too. That's all you could ask. But anyway, if people want to, you decide. But I'm gonna have to go back and do my other job here.
Yep. Okay. See ya.
Bye.
Great job.
Yeah, really good job, Kristin. Thank you.
Thanks. Y'all have fun.
Yeah, so I mean, what this is showing is that for the vast majority of problems, they recur. And our lean philosophy, and really the gold standard, the top of the mountain, is that we can see and solve problems as close to the source as possible and fix them such that they can never happen again. And so that's what we're after here. So creating systems that allow us to see problems close to the source, and then having the problem solving, management, and respectful culture that allows you to solve them such that they can never happen again. That's the top of the mountain. So we've talked about this getting down to the bottom of things. We went through the 5 whys. There's also this cool other way to do 5 whys. With a fishbone diagram. It's a little bit different. So it's a beautiful cause and effect way of seeing things, looking at it across multiple varieties, man, machine, methods, processes, people. So it's a good way to have a more holistic look at the 5 whys, but that shop floor focus 5 whys is really cool too. I think we should move right ahead to some Q&A. We have Sean here. So let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, there is a good question. Can you explain on the organization chart of traditional versus lean?
Yeah. Zofia, why don't you take this? You had the upside down org chart, which is beautiful, servant leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the question that, were you here for that? I didn't see who asked the question. Were you here for that discussion?
It's anonymous, so.
Anonymous? Okay.
Yes, I asked the question.
Okay. Did you get to see the pyramidal structure versus the inverted pyramid? So the
Yes.
basic concept is that, again, it's really about help, those who are in positions of authority. Their job is really about helping people do their best work, figuring out how to help people with their help, right? So a lot of times it's actually engaging people on a regular basis. And you heard from a lot of us that we've, a lot of us worked on a lot of projects as well. And we've noticed a great difference, which is part of why we were drawn to lean. I was drawn to lean because I worked on some very non-lean projects and was not consulted and felt like I was not very well respected, and for my insights or my experience or education. And when I got onto a lean project, and it was wonderful to have somebody actually recognize that there are things that people who are out there we say the pointy head of the spear, right? On the very tip of the spear, because the reason we call it a spear is because the spear has a handle, and the person who is often doing the work they're being directed by, those who are managing them, right? And so, and they're oftentimes taking great risk. And so it's really intended to make sure it's not a culture of blame, but a culture of really trying to figure out how to help people do their best work. I don't know if that helps clarify a little bit.
Yeah, can I add something to that? Which is, as we move into industrialized construction and more manufacturing part of lean, and I think lean manufacturing is a great addition to this, people are looking to do offsite construction. So some of the terms and the org charts need to change as well. We need more emphasis on material planning and logistics. That's a role that needs to be filled. I like value stream leaders, people that are understanding certain things that we make and understand that value stream very much. If a trade goes into the factory, and by the way, call it a factory or a plant and not a warehouse. Hey, what's happening in the warehouse? A warehouse is where you store stuff. A factory is where you make things. So things like that should be changing as well. When the trade person, when we bring in people that work in the field, they're a foreman, now they're production leaders or they're plant managers. So those are some of the other things that I would like to see change as we move towards industrialized construction, bringing in lean manufacturing techniques. Oh my gosh, what is the typical lean journey? It takes years to build this, but you can get going pretty quick by doing lean things. From going to doing lean things to being lean is really the switch that we're looking for. So Sean, I would say that people should look for things like 5S, workplace organization as a place to start, and then get a coach that has been through this so that you can understand the framework.
All right. Another question is, I've heard of the last planner. Is this digitized and linked to schedule software with constraint management?
Yes, there are several digitized last planner systems out there. I think if you did a Google search on this, you'd find them. It's promoting one over the other is not really my realm, but if you go to the Lean Construction Institute, their webpage, leanconstruction.org, you'd find that those softwares, those digitized softwares are, they're part of the partners, and you can find them there.
Nick, could I add something? There's a book that many people are finding accessible. It's called The Lean Builder. And the reason I mention it is because in my class, I teach a lot of students, but actually a lot of companies are finding this very helpful as well. It's very relatable. And it's actually the feedback I get, it's Joe Donarumo and Kian Zandi have expressed, they've it seems like I just get lots and lots of thanks from people who read through this. So it gives you very practical examples of how a lot of these, what might seem a little theoretical, how it's actually implemented on job sites. So it's extremely accessible book.
Okay.
I don't know if you use that one, Nick, as well, but
I do. I love Joe.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
Yes, you can see here, we're running a little bit over. So to be respectful of time, Kristin has a $100 off. If you want to come to the Congress, I'll be there. It'd be great to high five some of you there. So that'd be awesome. And I don't think we're gonna have time for Plus Delta, but go ahead and add in the chat if you like. We definitely look at it. And then if you'd like to connect with us, these QR codes will go to our LinkedIn profiles. And if you email me, I will answer you. I'm sure that goes for the others.
Please do take a moment if you can to, if you're not rushing off somewhere else, the Plus Delta, as Nick said, it's very helpful for us that we know what worked and what worked for you. The Plus Delta tool, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's different from Plus Minus because what it is Plus helps people understand what to do more of. And that if it's offered again, stick with this, don't throw this out. Delta is different from Minus because Minus is, let's imagine you're at a conference and it's a live conference and you say, okay, I love the presenters or something like this, but I hated the food. If you say I hated the food, the people who organize it the next time around don't know what to do. But if you say, please have more vegetables, then they know what to do, right? Because otherwise they may just give you more chocolate, right? They really have no concept. And so it's a wonderful tool. And I would actually encourage you to use it as well during each of your meetings. I use it now for my students instead of Plus Minus, because sometimes if you say Plus Minus, people, all they hear are the negative things. But if you say Delta, and you say, okay, you need to, next time around, this is what I recommend you do when you run these calculations, they say, oh, okay, I can do that, right? But if you just tell them, you're no good at math, that doesn't actually help anybody. So it really gives them the vision of the Kaizen stairway, the continuous improvement stairway. So anyway, that's thank you for those of you who are starting to throw in some deltas and pluses. It's so great.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Plus that the Delta feedback is useful because I do enjoy it.
Yeah, that's so great. And the mural was good. Slide numbers, okay, easier to refer to during Q&A. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. Cat meme at break, okay. Yeah, that's so great. Page. Second the cat meme, yeah, I agree with you. Okay, we could have a 3-minute walkthrough on how to use mural. That's a good point. I know it's kind of new. That's a good point.
Yeah, I love that people loved the exercises. We try to make these interactive, learn by doing.
Yeah, I need more time for the exercises. And that is, as Nick said, I mean, really the advantage of when you have a lean champion or you have a lean consultant. I think Nick is a great example. I mean, these kinds of exercises, really a lot more time is given. And so people, that's a tremendous opportunity to get these aha moments. In fact, there's lots and lots of exercises and games because, again, it needs to change people's, not just their minds, but their hearts as well. And so these exercises are set up that way. Okay, I think people like the history. I'm glad to hear that. So that's useful to know. Oh, yeah, sorry, Sean. Yeah, it would be great to have more of your interaction. Yeah, this was just a, I guess, taste of lean journey. So let's see, you like the introduction and tack time? Okay, could be improved to spend more time on the topic. Yes, I know. Yeah, non-repetitive work, we understand that. Lean fit with production management system. Wow, that's a whole other discussion as well. I wish we had time. Oh, great. Yes, yes. I actually, for those of you who are familiar with factory physics and Mark Spearman, and I mean, there's a lot of that which we include in Lean, right? So there's, I mean, to be honest, there's tremendous amount of overlap. And so I would say Lean construction is probably a little bit more, the umbrella is quite a bit larger. So it includes, of course, a lot of cultural issues, psychology, as well as the mathematics of tact time and things like that. Let's see, we're bringing AWP, both Lean. Great. And people should feel free to open up if you had any, if you wanted to just say something, that's perfectly great. I know not everybody needs a full 30-minute break, and Nick and I are hanging out, so we can, I mean, unless you have to take off, Nick, I mean, we can certainly field some questions for the next couple of minutes, I'm guessing, right? I mean, is that true for you as well, for Nick?
Yep, I can hang out. Looks like people are winding down. Oh, this.
Yeah, people are still
Okay.
here. That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's a good one.
Nowhere to go.
Uh-huh.
I see Michael Klux there. That's great. I was glad to see that you were able to join, which is really nice. Anybody want to unmute themselves and say anything? Might be useful if you, hopefully you can unmute yourself. Came off mute to join breakouts. Okay. Yeah, Mural is a new thing for me too. So I was really glad to see bringing that into the space. So, okay, well, I think we're kind of closing down. People are, I think people are heading off and to their various corners. So we'll look forward to seeing you in the plenary, which I understand starts at 11:30. And my job at this point is to just put in chat to remind you where to go. So in case you need to be reminded, I'm going to just put this in the chat section here. Hold on, let me put everyone in the meeting. There we go. So you just need to go into that, and then remember you have your email address and your password, which you'll need to get access. And we will thank you everyone for being here. It was just a pleasure having you here. So we'll look forward to seeing you in the next 2 days. So
Yeah, great job.
Thank you. Great job. Absolutely.
Thanks, Sophia. You're a lot of fun to be around. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, you too, Nick. Oh, take care, everyone.